Hello folks, welcome back to another video on the channel with me, DoctorBenjy FM. Good to see you, Ben. Call me Ben, for heaven's sake. So what we're going to do today then is go through some of the Football Manager features that you might not have seen. Now, some of them have been floating around on Twitter. There's a few in-game as well that I want to focus on, which, you might not have seen quite yet from the features that have been announced. We will focus mainly off the Twitter account of Miles Jacobson, who is, of course, the studio director at Football Manager. He tweets out a lot of the features that aren't kind of the headline features as described by him, the quality of life features. And, of course, with access to the game, we can look a little bit deeper into a few of those. So we make our way over to Twitter then, and as you can see, Miles said he was going to tweet out all sorts of things. Again, quality of life features, other features that didn't fit into the blogs. And now I've got access to the game. We can look at some of these a little more detailed. Some of them are quite self-explanatory, so we won't. But some of them definitely worth taking a deeper look at. And again, there's a few of my own that I want to highlight as well that I think are really nice additions to this year's game. So the first one, we've added nearly 4,000 new team talks and team meeting strings into FM22. That's a lot. And a criticism of FM for a long time has been that the team talks become extremely repetitive. You can see the new game scenarios, club rivalries, extra time, penalties, red cards, all sorts of stuff. And you can see there, I know how hard fought this rivalry is. Go out there and play for the fans. The assistant doesn't recommend it, but I mean, it's an option now. And it's a Derby Forest game. I mean, it's a massive one. But this is something I think people have wanted for a long time, so I think people will be happy that this is in the game now. And I could show you every single string. I could go through every 4,000 of them, but I don't necessarily think that's worth it. That's something that you will definitely find as you play through the rest of the game. Okay, the next one's really interesting because it kind of speaks to FM being quite morale-based at times. You now have the opportunity to speak to your team after a result, which could be useful if you want to keep a run going or perhaps regain momentum after a run of games. You can praise, criticize. I think having more interaction with your players is something I'm definitely on board with. I think the way they've changed how the team talks work and things like that now, it used to be a little bit robotic, I used to feel like. Now it does feel like there are a lot of options. Like you do get to tune how your relationship with your players exists, whether that be things like the code of conduct, for example, or the run-ins to title challenges, or staying up after a tricky run. I do think they're improving this game a lot, and I do think it's a particularly difficult area to improve because a lot of these conversations that you have with players over the course of maybe 10, 20 years do get quite repetitive. So to keep it fresh is really difficult, but it seems like they're trying to do that. We'll just go into the game briefly to talk about one that I'm a big fan of because they talked about quite a lot, and you probably, admittedly, have heard about the data hub. There are so many details within the data hub that Second Card has done a video specifically on it. Some of the scattergraph stuff is amazing, really, really good. People that don't think they're going to use the data hub, you'll be surprised, and you definitely will. There'll be a link in the description to Matt's video. It's well worth checking out. And I didn't want to do a video about features and not mention the data hub because there are elements of it that I think people are going to absolutely love. Okay, this is the next big one I want to talk about. A new, cleaner way of visualizing your tactics so you can analyze your system's strengths and weaknesses instantly. Now, Miles put up these screenshots of his Watford save that I'm sure he's got going on. But of course, now I've got the game, I can show you just how much this changes based on how players move. And again, I think you'll be surprised. So we're managing AFC Wimbledon here then. As you can see from the analysis screen, this is pretty much what we saw from Miles' screenshots. But if you change these players around, how much will it impact the negative and positive effects your team have on certain areas of the pitch? So if we're to move all these players back, in fact, let's move all of them back and let's see just how much there's still positive influence in this attacking right area. There's still positive influence in the attacking areas. They're not so much centrally, of course, but I do feel like it gives you a lot more clarity on where you're strong, where you're weak. Before, you'd have these huge red markers everywhere, and unless you went through and clicked every individual player, you wouldn't fully understand where they were having these positive and negative influences. Now, it does appear to be a lot clearer. Just having one player, by the way, sort of like starts to diminish everything around it, and you can see the players that are having those positive and negative effects in those positions as too. So when you're thinking of creating a tactic and you're trying to be defensively stable or attacking overloads like in certain areas, now you can see just how much it's happening and the areas of the pitch in which you're more likely to see that influence happen. So I really love this feature. It's a really simple thing that I can't believe hasn't been there before, and that is sort of a quality of life thing that Football Manager do very often. Yeah, big fan of that. There's another feature that Miles mentioned and on Twitter, and this is something that I think Jack's done a feature video as well where he talks about this feature. But yeah, the fact you can now save after 30 minutes of time after matches, immediately after matches, which is great, or 60 minutes real time. Yeah, really, really good additions. For network saves specifically, I think these are going to be really, really good. Sometimes you forget, you have 2 weeks, you have an international break, and all of a sudden you forgot to save and you're all replaying 2 games or whatever. And sometimes you have issues here or there that result in So yeah, love this. 30 minutes after matches, 60 minutes, big fan. And pro tip, I was doing some experiment stuff with Haaland and Mbappe recently, but a pro tip, have 3-file rolling autosaves. Just put it on. Saving, by the way, still as quick as it was last year. Ready? Boom. Just like that. I mean, amazing. Even when you get deep into saves, the save is still very, very quick. All right, another UI change. I'm not going to focus on all the features Miles has revealed. There's a lot of them. We've altered the UI on the squad registration screen. A small but neat change to make it clear of who's in and out of the squad. I don't know if it's just me, but I really like this sort of thing. So when you go on the registration screen, suddenly it's a lot more obvious who's been registered, who isn't. Of course, if you've got under 21 players, very often they don't need to be registered. But it's just, again, Miles is right. The UI change is really good. It makes it far more obvious. The amount of times you've got like European competition and you accidentally don't register that player who is then furious for 6 months. This makes that less likely to happen, I feel like. Actually, I will say as well, halfway through this video, if you follow Miles on Twitter, you might have seen all of these, but there are lots of you that I suspect either don't use Twitter, don't follow Miles on Twitter, and you know, based upon how many likes some of these tweets have, I feel like it's worth making a video on all of these, or some of them. There's a lot of them. This is a really neat feature. I think people are going to love this. At the end of every season, you'll see the top 5 signings in your division in one handy news item. I get the sense a lot of people will cover this. I definitely will in videos, just to see where my transfers rank against other sides in my level. Yeah, you can see there Wickham did very well. But yeah, I love this. This is really cool. Okay, there's a few here that don't come in screenshots, and you can kind of see from how many people like them. People don't necessarily pick up on these quite as often, but again, the quality of life functions of this I think are important. So the media source code has been refactored, so you'll now see more appropriate media asking you questions. Sorry, appropriate media asking you questions both in and out of press conferences to further enhance the suspension of disbelief when you escape into a career game. The next one you've got here, in a job interview, as a manager starting their managerial journey, this is huge for some people, you'll now be able to ask for support in gaining coaching badges if you're successful and land the job. There's nothing worse than taking a job somewhere, not having that assurance, and then not being able to progress yourself as a manager until they're out of debt. That's been a nightmare for me in previous saves, especially like lower league, rising to the top saves. So yeah, that's good, great. Can we spend wages on supercars yet though? No, thankfully we can't. And Miles adds to that, there are actually lots of new interactions possible in job interviews, including being able to change the staff budgets, and lots of changes on how staff budgets work, now including changes to new gen staff, staff movement, responsibility, board requests, and lots more, which is great. And we're going to end with this one, which is dynamic rivalries. And now in the game, if you're unfamiliar with dynamic rivalries, they already happen if you're a staff member. You might have noticed your relationship with different staff will change as a manager, but now your club will have a rivalry with different teams based on what's happening within the save. It's far deeper, it's far more organic, and it's hopefully going to make you enjoy the game that bit more. If you have a team suddenly that appear, whether it be through cup competitions or sustained league rivalry, then they can change throughout the course of the save, rather than having sort of that one battle in League 2, and by the time you get to the Championship, you've got this new battle that has arisen. Maybe you both get promoted from the Championship at some stage and things like that. So dynamic rivalries, something people have been asking for a very long time, and now it seems to be a lot more detailed and a lot more fluid too, and that's going to be great. Hopefully again it makes it more immersive. And I'll say quite openly, right, a lot of these features right now, a lot of the new features, and we'll go full screen for this, a lot of the things we're talking about in this video, it'll be interesting to see in a few months time how much they affect how we play Football Manager. Ultimately, having new features that nobody plays or nobody uses or people don't find interesting don't really matter, but if you have enough together that make the overall experience of playing the game better, that to me is what Football Manager do really, really well. And of course, there are loads of headline features that I've not mentioned in this video, and again, other guys have made videos on that, so you can check those out. But there are these little bits and pieces that float around that I think, as lovers of the game, I think if you're watching a video on YouTube about FM, you probably love it as much as I do. There are loads of little things that make it just that bit better, and hopefully again in 6 months time we can look back and say, do you know what, I'm really pleased they put that in. So let's see. As I mentioned, there are lots of other guys that have made videos. I'll leave links to those guys in the description, as well as some of their videos they've put up, especially the ones that I've sort of referenced in this video. And if you've enjoyed it, please do drop a like on it. Make sure you subscribe. Plenty of FM22 content coming over the next year, whether it be games against other people or doing my own saves, of course. Glory Hunter returns. I will be, as the creator of, will be back with the Glory Hunter save. I'm looking forward to it. And I should mention as well, FM22 giveaways happening all over the place in the description. Check it out, and I'll see you soon. We love with care. But until next time, I'll see you again. Goodbye. It's here. FM22's here. Look at it. I'm clicking it. I'm playing it. Look at me. I'm having such a lovely. Look at what a good time I'm having.